Hello, it's Maxie Moyer, and welcome to this week's playlist, Beatles cover songs. This playlist selects covers from the Beatles catalogue of groundbreaking music, with an emphasis on Lennon and McCartney songwriting rather than their own recordings. Concentrating on covers and interpretations from other artists helps the songwriting speak for itself. The playlist is in two parts. Part 1 includes covers of songs by established performers like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye and Elbow. The 10 songs in Part 2 are Lennon and McCartney compositions written specifically for artists like Cilla Black, or passed on to likely performers including J Kramer and the Fourmost. Whilst early Beatles albums were dominated by Lennon's compositions, McCartney wrote more of the songs for other musicians. By the 1970s, they had passed on enough songs for other artists to fill a complete album. In all cases, regardless, I've selected tracks for their musical worth and distinctive take on life in the lyrics. McCartney met Lennon at a local church fete where John was performing with his group The Quarrymen. Impressed with Paul's guitar playing in Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock, he invited his fellow Liverpudlian to join the band. They started writing songs together in the late 1950s and by the early 1960s were prolific composers. Between 1962 and 1970, the Lennon-McCartney partnership published approximately 180 jointly credited songs, the vast majority of which were recorded by the Beatles and forming the bulk of their catalogue. The extraordinarily successful songwriting partnership was different to others in several ways. Their content, so overtly varied, was actually heavily focused on people. Author David Rowley points out that at least half of all Lennon and McCartney lyrics have the words you and or your in the first line. Indeed, Lennon said that the main intention of the Beatles' music was communicating with people, a view shared by McCartney. Despite their shared focus, the two had distinctly different outlooks on life and music. In his 1980 Playboy interview, John recalled, "Paul provided a lightness and optimism, while I would go for the sadness, the discords, the bluesy notes. There was a period when I thought I didn't write melodies, that Paul wrote those, and I just wrote straight shouting rock and roll." Where Elton John and Bernie Taupin, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein, George and Ira Gershwin all paired composers with lyricists, Lennon and McCartney collaborated in a meaningful way on both the music and story in their songs. In the early days of their partnership, Lennon and McCartney wanted to emulate the success of composing duos such as Goffin and King and Leiber and Stoller by writing songs for other artists to record. By 1963, other artists were clamouring for an original Lennon and McCartney song, knowing the media and public interest in these songs would help them enormously. At the start, when writing songs, John and Paul collaborated extensively. As their songwriting developed, however, it became common for one to write all or most of the song with more limited input from the other. Whatever inputs were involved, their partnership guaranteed equal credit on the record label for them both. Of the 20 songs on my playlist, 19 are credited to the Lennon and McCartney songwriting team, and just one, Badfinger's Come and Get It, is attributed solely to Paul McCartney. However, those 19 Lennon and McCartney compositions cover a number of songwriting permutations. Only 2, We Can Work It Out, and, with a little help from my friends, were actually collaborations as generally understood. 15 of the songs were written primarily by Paul McCartney, with the remaining 3 songs, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Hello Little Girl, and You Can't Do That, being John Lennon creations. The magic of it all remains that regardless of record cover accreditation, Paul McCartney and John Lennon were collaborating at so many levels, informing, developing, and, when the time came, putting the Beatles to bed. Their conversations, mutual appreciation, rivalries and arguments were likely at work for the musical good throughout the roller coaster of joint and separate endeavours.